Hey friends, welcome back to the Moments Peace podcast. My name is Mike. This is my lovely wife, Nereida, and today we are talking about the ever important topic of balance. So, today we're talking about balance and how you can find that balance between all the things you have to do in life when you're a homeschooling family. So, a lot of people live their life working the 9 to 5, kids go off to public school, they balance, meals in the car on the way to the sporting events, and they just rinse and repeat and do it every day and live a very hustle-bustle life. Now, if you're not careful, a homeschooling family who you might think, well, I'm doing it the better way. I've got my complete control and sovereignty over my own homeschool and how that runs. But you can quickly fill up your schedule, right? I mean, you can fill it up with social events and also those same sporting events. And before you know it, you're living a same rat race kind of life. So there has to be a way to find balance. There has to be a way that you as a family can honor God, honor the limits of your body, honor the limits of your family and your finances, and find a way to find that balance. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We got this question that came in. It was, any tips do you have on balancing homeschool with home life, work, or other responsibilities that you might have? So what's your take on that?
So I think that the best way to make sure what needs to get done and what you want to get done is by having a schedule and a routine.
Schedule and routine, baby. That's where it's at.
So schedule doesn't necessarily have to be like this many minutes for this and this block of time, but it can be like
a
rhythms
checklist,
and
flow.
flows of how things need to go. So like our kids know, like regardless of what day or time it is, like if it's a Monday and they got up at 7 a.m. or if it's a Tuesday and they got up at 8 or 10, like they know that there's still certain markers and things that have to happen,
Right?
And that have to work. They
Right.
have to work through. So
in fact, that was an alarm to tell us it's time for something else on our schedule. So that was one thing you do. You
I
create
set alarms
on
Yeah,
your phone.
I do.
They happen to go off.
And one of them is
in opportune
9:30
time.
start school. Like
In the morning, right, yeah.
So 1:30 is start school, and
You have
and
one
our
for
Bible
quiet time too at 2 p.m.
I do.
One for dinner prep at 4:30,
4:15.
4:15. It goes off to say time to start dinner. So it helps you
Yeah.
to trigger in your brain, hey, when I hear that song
And that
come
works
on.
for me. And it also works for the kids some. I also have a son who's a type 1 diabetic, so I have an alarm for his nighttime Lantus, even though he's had type 1 diabetes for 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
But it just helps keep us on track. So So I heard Sonia Schaefer a few years ago from Simply Charlotte Mason say, get your whole week listed out and put your outside commitments in there first, or your priorities of what needs to get done first. And I thought at first it was kind of crazy to put your outside commitments first, but it makes sense because if you're going to be out Wednesday night for church and, you want to rest on Sunday after being out from church, or your kid has a piano lesson on Thursday at 2.
Or you want to record podcast episodes on a certain day.
Yeah, you need to make sure that those outside commitments are there. So on Wednesday for church, my school days tend to be a little shorter. Mm-hmm. And I tend to have that's the day we do geography, so I don't have to really do history. So it lightens that day because I have to start dinner prep so much sooner so that we're out the door by a certain time.
To be at church on Wednesday night.
Yeah, or if I'm going to go grocery shopping for a large family, for me, we have all these autoimmune diseases. I have to be mentally prepared and physically to match,
right,
to go to the grocery store.
Be well rested for all that.
Yeah, it's an event in itself.
So it's not like you could go grocery shopping after you leave church on a Wednesday night. It's it's 9:00. Let's swing in and get groceries. It's just a recipe for disaster. You won't be balanced. It
won't, because then I'm off later, and it's just a mess. And usually Costco's not even open that late, but
you tipped your hand. We go to Costco a lot.
Yeah.
Big family, 6 kids,
Yeah, so I think that you have to write down, know what you're aiming for, what are the priorities, and get that written out. Mm-hmm. Then, what we have, just decide what needs to get clean and how often it needs to get clean to your standard. Everybody has a different standard. I'm Hispanic. it has to be pretty clean for me, just because I can't think in chaos.
And clutter.
Yeah, clutter. I can't do it. So from when our kids were toddlers, we taught them to put stuff in their little toy bins back after they played with them, because I can't do it, and I hate stepping on Legos. So I think whatever your tolerance and comfortable level is, if we're a large family, so if we don't wipe down the toilets every day, we'll look like a 7-Eleven gas station toilet, and that's not going to happen.
Quick.
Like, so, and laundry. So I would say, based on your priorities and your tolerance, what needs to get done, and then put those times in there. Like, I have to start dinner at 4:15 to make sure that we're not eating any later than 5:30 or 6 on certain days,
because that works for our family. I mean, other people may eat
it works
later.
They might eat later. Yeah,
you got to still have a plan in place. It's like you're doing with your time what you do with your money, by putting it on paper on purpose.
Yes.
Each month for a budget financially, you're putting also on paper on purpose what you're budgeting your time for,
and having it out in the open. So we have it on a board, we have it on a Trello board, and we have it downstairs, so everybody can be held accountable to that. And there's not this bickering. Everybody can be held accountable to it, and it's not like it has to be your master, but it's definitely your guide. So I think
keeping a schedule is a great first point. The second one that I just thought of that could springboard off of that is having everybody share the load of the work that has to be done. That chore list is also in our schedule. So we have who's doing what chore each day all spelled out. We sat down, we took some time to figure out, on Mondays, this kid's doing the kitchen. That means they're cooking the meals and cleaning up. That just for that one day, that's all they do. Then this other kid does the laundry, and a different kid does the sweeping and the mopping. And it's itemized of who does what each day, so that we have that planned out.
And that's coming from somebody who has older children. If you have children who are 7 and under,
you're probably cleaning all the house in one day. Saturdays, clean the whole house.
You're gonna need help. So that 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old can help do the basic things, and maybe just a quick wipe down, whatever you're physically able to do, and what your spouse can do, or you may need to get a helper if you can afford it. I know there's people who get outside help to come in. Sometimes it's a teenage person, sometimes it's a company. But those are hard times, and the expectation level is probably a little less. But you just, again, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever needs to get done, and still dinner needs to get done on the table, and you're not as heavy in academics, so you should have a little bit more time to clean up after yourself, and just overall being a good steward of what God's blessed you with and what you have and have been entrusted with. Steward that well, but it is balanced. Don't have the expectations your kids could cook. Well, some of them still don't know how to cook, and so they're our sous chef helper.
Some of them they say they can cook, but you wouldn't want to eat that. Whatever they produce, it's I'm sending that.
And
back
then there's
to
others who really do know how to cook, and so we take time.
You got to train them
to train them. I did a unit study in November of just because it's Thanksgiving and everything. I said, okay, I'm going to teach you guys how to declutter. I'm going to teach you how to clean every part of a house, and how it should be done to our standard. And then we're going to spend a couple of days just baking or cooking, and it's okay to do that. I did that a lot in December, where I just taught them how to bake a bunch of family favorites, and it's that season lends itself well for that. And then November was great to do it for decluttering and cleaning and stuff. But when it becomes a part of your family culture, that certain messes are unacceptable. You're not going to leave water, just a pile of water on the floor or whatever.
A puddle.
From the time they're 2, 3, 4, you just teach them how to clean up after themselves. They can do that. They can put toys away. I remember singing, clean up, everybody clean up, and I mean, so from that time on, and then when they're older, they, outside of academics, life skills is learning how to cook and clean and care for a home. To not know how to work a washer and dryer, but hand your kid an iPhone is very inconsistent. An iPhone is a privilege and comes with deep dangers, but then they're not equipped to take care of a home, take care of their basic needs now
they can't
and forever.
Scrub the baseboard,
that's a problem. So, you just keep that in mind that that is also a part of your homeschool, and people have listed it on there as life skills or leadership development or home ec. Like, that is very much what they can spend their time doing, and it helps balance it all out because everybody's living in there. I mean, I love Abby from Rooted in Rest. She says, she calls it contributions, and I know some people who call it like raising arrows, like from Friday blessings, because a lot of people just want to focus on school Monday through Thursday, and they take Fridays and do the Jewish idea of getting their
like
whole
Shabbat.
house completely clean and have a nice bread and stew and meals made so that by 12 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're done. But they can go on and have family time and fellowship with other people. But that big, huge chunk of time in the morning and early afternoon, they've taken it to bless back their home.
Right.
And then, but they work really hard Monday through Thursday. And sometimes that block scheduling works for people. We broke it up.
Yeah, because we did that for a while,
Yeah.
where we would do
And that
all the
season called
cleaning.
for it.
Yeah, when our kids were littler, that we did that season of all the cleaning and the home economic stuff is going to happen in one block of time in one day. Everybody's going to focus on that. But now that we've got different ages and stages where they can manage some things.
And demand.
Now, again,
because now our kids' friends come over. So now
Right.
that's also motivation for them to be like, well, I need to have my house clean and a clean, presentable toilet. Teaching them hospitality. Like, we have a hospitality cabinet that we keep chips and salsa and cookies and water and, rice and beans. So at any point, if we need to cook for all these teenagers hanging out, or we leave like mini tacos frozen in the freezer or something
hence
like
why
that.
we go to Costco quite a bit.
Yeah, like you have to have food ready to when these
the
kids
phrase
come and hang
"eat
out.
you out of house and home." I mean, that's literally what's happening.
Yeah, and when you teach your kids to have that type of hospitality or to be ready to host people that way, we also host Bible studies in our house, so that kind of plays into it. But
It's a blessing,
it makes
though.
them
Like, learn how to bless others.
It makes them bless others, but it
And-
also helps them like clean and want to clean. They have
Yeah.
a motivation, because a good name is to be chosen rather than get riches. And the Proverbs also say, "Do you see someone skillful in his work? He should stand before kings." Like, that's what I tried to aim to my kids. Whatever you do, and if you've had the blessing to be at home and keep everyone alive and nurture and train your kids to love the Lord, you need to have a good, clean, happy atmosphere. And to everybody, that looks like a different degree, and there's grace in different seasons. And it's okay that as your homeschool evolves and your needs evolve and your kids' abilities evolve, to change it. Maybe block scheduling worked to this season. Maybe this works, this season. And
Yeah, I think the operative word to find balance is when you're trying to balance, like, let's say you're trying to balance on a balance beam, or even you're riding a bike, you're never going to be just completely static or stationary and freeze. You're not going to freeze when you're trying to balance yourself. There's constantly muscles moving to keep you balanced. If you're on a bike, you're constantly moving and shifting your weight as you find that balance point. And so the same is true with your schedule and with your time commitments, with all your energy level and what you choose to do. You may be in one season able to host a Bible study at your house, which is, we've gotten to that. But for years, we said we cannot host people. We didn't have a hospitality cabinet because we just said our home can't be a place to host people. It's too chaotic. It's too much going on all at the same time. And so we had to eventually wait for that season to arrive, and now it's here, and we're enjoying the blessing of it. In fact, this very podcast we're doing right now,
better than the other. It's just they're different,
right?
Because like when you had dominion completely over your kids,
then things were easier because
even
you could control it. But then you have to kind of phase that out, like I said before. Like, you phase out control in exchange for influence as they get older. But even this podcast we're doing right now, we've had a vision to do this for 5 years, and the season could warrant it because our kids and our life and our schedules demand. And we finally got to a point where we have a little block of time to commit to coaching you and how to homeschool your family. So,
and though we've been encouraged to do that for years, the timing
just didn't
was
work
not
out.
right.
Yeah,
and
it just couldn't work out.
That's another thing I was going to say. A part of that question was, or other responsibilities you have. If you're committed at church, that's a responsibility.
Yep.
I know whenever he does worship or my kids do worship, because they're all on the worship team, like, that's still a commitment on my part, and that's changes the dynamics for me and my younger ones on that Sunday or the week that they have worship practice. And so that also has to be balanced, and it has to be planned out. And there's certain things that you just have to say no to. Like, I'm saying no to a couple of things this year, especially after escaping and recovering from mold at our old rental and stuff, so that we can heal and so that we can focus on this now. So there are times where you have to say no. And when you are with kids 7 and under, 10 and under, that season requires that you are home more. And that's okay. That is the highest and privileged place to be, and it's not going to last forever. And so you won't be able to feast in certain ways that you may long to now, but that it's going to fly by. And the older your kids get and the more independent they get, you'll get more freedom and you'll enjoy that. But there's also a sorrow to the death of that season as well.
Yeah.
So everything is balanced and kind of ebbs and flows. And so you have to find out. My biggest tip to you is to pray and evaluate and figure out what is tolerable, what is like a necessity, what can go. And sometimes you have to say a hard no. Our problem in our society is we don't know how to tell ourselves no.
Yeah.
And we overstimulate, and
Or
we
even tell other people no.
try to like overcompensate. Especially that's really big in the homeschool community. I have to overcompensate. I have to do this and do this, do that to make sure that they don't have, fear of missing out, or that we're not, and that God is not a God of chaos. And when you feel guilted or manipulated or obligated to do something, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. But you got to pray and just keep it ebb and flowing, that balance.
Yep.
Pray and talk to your spouse and your family, kind of see what the priority is in that season.
Yep. So I would say,
Ability.
to summarize, if I can remember back, we first talked about having basically a budget for your time, a schedule, and really dialing in what that looks like. It doesn't have to be down to the minute, but at least it's a flow of what your days look like. That should help you prioritize what you have to do. You talked about outside commitments. Also, getting the help of your children to create a sense of balance and peace by having them maintain things in the house. And if you have younger kids, that's going to look different than if you have older kids. But also saying no to a lot of things. So when it comes to prioritizing and scheduling and seeing where your blocks of time and what white space you have in that schedule, there's a lot you'll have to say no to, because everything's demanding you. I mean, everything's calling out to you to come do this. Well, that sounds great. Well, they would love that. Well, I think they would really benefit from that. Well, I can't not say no to that. And that type of discernment has to be used, as John MacArthur puts it, discernment instead of discernment. That discernment has to be exercised on your schedule specifically. You've got to look at, how much energy do I have? How much time do I have? How much is this a priority? If I had to cut all the things out of here and only pick one thing, what would it be? I mean, it's like when your kids are at the store and you're like, well, look, guys, you can pick one thing. I say, but I want 5 things. Like, well, you can only get one thing. And we still are like little kids. We look at our schedule and like, but I want to do all 5 things. Like, no, you can only do the one thing.
I like how you say you got to be kind to yourself.
Yeah,
You know,
you
like
gotta be
God
kind to
designed
yourself.
for us
Yeah.
to rest and to sleep. And when you hear statistics like, oh, most cancers are preventable, but we don't prevent them because of our lifestyle. Like, our lifestyle choices so completely into our overall health. And the word is so clear on how we should be treating our health and, taking time to rest and restore, be out in nature, do things that refuel you. Those make you a better wife, a better teacher, a better mother, a better friend, a better church person. Like, I mean, just it makes you more grateful to spend time to just be grateful, and then have your non-negotiables. There has to be non-negotiables
Yes.
in your schedule,
I've heard it put about the whole the analogy of the glass jar and the rocks. And you put all the big rocks in first, and then you put the smaller rocks, and then the pebbles, and then the sand. And the reason you put the big rocks in first is because if you put all the sand in first and you'd fill the whole thing with sand, you would never be able to fit that big rock in there. And the idea there, that analogy, is that you've got to prioritize the things in your life that are actually important. And stop messing around with all this twaddle and sand and little things. It's like eating 100 appetizers and being too full to eat dinner. Like, you have to get all the appetizers aside and choose the things that are actually important for your life and for your family. You can't let all these little distractions come in and take you away from the basic thing of, I've got to get to bed on time. I've got to go to bed early enough to get a good night's sleep so that I have enough energy to face each day. And if you're in that cycle of staying up too late, it's going to ruin everything. It's a trickling effect, and it's all because we just can't tell ourselves no. And so put the big rocks in first, prioritize it, make your schedule. And then we're not talking from people who are like
winning,
rock stars
totally.
or winning at
Yeah.
this. We're speaking from the experience of knowing how much it damages your home culture and how it creates bad habits. It can create laziness in everyone, present company included, where you have to reorient your lifestyle to get those priorities, to find that balance. It's a constant moving target, and
just
you've got
to
to work
tell
on it.
Gate on that is you're also the example your kids are seeing. So you can say resting and sleeping are important, or reading the Bible, or spending time with my spouse, or being out in nature, or, having a clean house. But like, unless they see you doing that or see you lead that, I like what Randy Pratt from Master Books always says. He's like, you get what you lead. So oftentimes we have to take a hard example, like of our exam of ourselves. Like, if I don't like what I'm seeing, am I leading well?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it could be the problem that I see in them is just the problem that they're seeing in me, and I don't
then
realize
I'm the problem.
I'm the problem.
And it's like, okay, now I have the thank you, Lord, which is oftentimes how parenting works, right? Like, we're the ones that we realize how sinful we are when we see our sin in our own kids. Like,
they're like little mirrors.
Yeah.
Like,
So
why are you so mean? Oh, wait a second.
But like, if you want your kid to be disciplined, you want them to get in the Word, like, teach them, lead them in. And I would say that model too, when you're teaching them even how to clean, like, you show them how to do it, you do it with them, you watch them do it, then you let them do it. Like, I think that's the same model that we have used for all of our kids. And that's what we even have to still be better at as like, okay, well, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to coach them and go to bed on
I would
time,
love to stay up and watch this movie with you guys, but I have to work in the morning, and I can't be a zombie all day. I would love to be a zombie or just lay in bed all day. Oh, that would be glorious for a day.
Yeah.
But that's just not how life works. And so we have responsibilities. We have to be responsible.
Yeah.
And just getting yourself out of those bad habits and identifying what they are and working them out of your routine and replacing them with something better is all just a work in progress. I mean, it's something that we're all working on. It's all something we have to work at to find that balance. I mean, it's not something that you're just going to be gifted. Like, man, my life is just perfectly balanced and I didn't have to do any work to get it. It requires effort. Mm-hmm. Anything worth getting requires a lot of effort. So we're certainly not preaching from a place of superiority here. We're all working on this, and we have a lot of the same work to do.
But there is a way to get your homeschooling done and maintain a good home and atmosphere. And, Charlotte Mason says that a third of someone's education is their atmosphere. Yeah. And so, the atmosphere that you want your husband to come home to, the atmosphere you want your kids to be thriving in, that you want to be, if you think of like Psalm 127, where it says, the kids are around the table and they're like olive trees and everybody's flourishing. Like, it's good life. Like, what does that mean and look like for you and your family? So really think about what you can do, your availability, and that you are prioritizing rest, which is also different from sleeping, but both are extremely important, because that's the reason why the seventh day is the Lord's.
Yep.
And it's really for our benefit. And so just
think
of those things.
That was great. I think those are some great pointers. Good food for thought for even us. I mean, certainly we're not preaching to the choir here, like, or preaching to ourselves here. Like, we need the help too. We hope that was a blessing to you. Make sure that you like and subscribe to where you're finding this. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're on iTunes, leave us a review. That helps spread the word. We certainly want to help you provide that peace in your homeschool, in your Christian family, in your walk with the Lord, in your family culture. We want you to have peace. That's what we're all about. So we are thankful for you. Hope that you come out becoming a peacemaker in your home and in your sphere of influence. And we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.